Howdy there, youngins. Silver Mongoose here, back again with another episode of Gaming Favorites for you. It is my series where we talk about a game, a system, a game series, or any aspect of games that we really enjoy. We don't have to be experts in it, we just have to enjoy it and want to have a chat about it. So today we have a new guest on, Kasserole. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited for this. Honestly, when I started doing this series, I don't even know the first date, but I feel like it was probably 8 years ago, maybe more than that. Like I did actually want to have you on as far back as then.
Oh, thanks.
But it just never really panned out. There are some people who I've wanted to have guests for a long time, but we just can't think of a topic that really works. And I think this topic wouldn't even have worked back then, because today we're going to be talking about Animal Crossing. And I think when I started this series, I don't even think New Leaf was out, so we had significantly less content to talk about. And now Animal Crossing is a much larger part of the gaming landscape, especially last year with the release of New Horizons. So we have more to talk about, and yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm honestly super stoked to be here.
Cool. So I thought that we would just kind of talk... Well, first, actually, I almost forgot. I was going to ask you to do maybe a little 30-second gaming history just so people know where you're coming from.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up with brothers, so video games were kind of always in my life. They were always around. You know, I played a lot of easy Nintendo games, anything that was 4-player, so I could be included. And, you know, like Pokemon series, Zelda, Kirby, Mario Party, Mario Kart, anything that, you know, a 5-year-old is going to be able to do. And then growing up, I think I just kept going with the Nintendo series, and I really loved Animal Crossing and Pokemon and RPGs a lot. So hopefully I know enough about Animal Crossing to be able to talk about it with you today. We'll see. I think the die-hard fans might not like my continuity here.
Well, I mean that's why I said at the beginning that we don't have to be experts, because we're not, like, no one's an expert in anything. Like, this isn't like one of my old buyer's guides where I try to get every single date and detail right. It's just people having a chat, and like, it's like when I had one of the earlier guests on the Zelda episode. I had Ryan, Zelda Game God, and he was like, "Yeah, it was a mistake making that name because now everyone wants me to know everything about Zelda." But yeah, we're just having a chat. We're gonna get stuff incorrect, but
yeah,
all the memories and the feelings will be there, and that's what's important.
And I think Animal Crossing is very much about that. It's very much about the feelings, the nostalgia, and it's just such an easy, fun, mindless game.
Yeah. Yep. Mindless sounds like it has a negative connotation, I think. But it's definitely, the easygoing nature of it is definitely part of it. And I don't know if you wanted to talk about the series as a whole first, or if you just wanted to jump right into, like, the first game in the series and, like, chronologically work down.
For me, I haven't actually played the first official one. I know that there was a Japanese release on the N64, and I haven't played that, so I can't attest to it. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, so I visited Japan a number of years ago, and when I did, one of the last things I did was go to a place called Super Potato.
I love that.
In Akihabara, so, like, the Electric Light District, where there's all the big lights everywhere, and you can get lots of nerdy stuff. But Super Potato is like a really, it's a good chain. Stuff is a little bit, pricier, but that's according to our standards. So the Japanese culture, I'm not an expert, but as far as I can tell, they take care of their games a lot better because they're more about getting a game, playing it, and then selling it off. So you can get, like, boxed Chrono Trigger there for, like, next to nothing, whereas here a boxed Chrono Trigger would be hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and that's because, in North America, we had our cardboard boxes and we just took them and threw them out.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas they kept them to sell them. So when I went there, I got a few Super Nintendo games and a few N64 games, and one of them I wasn't even looking for, but was happy to find was the original Animal Crossing, which in Japan is called Animal Forest. Yeah, so I've played that a little bit, And I'm kind of weird about preserving game stuff. I'm really sentimental. So like if I buy a game that has like an old save file on it, I usually try to leave one of those files, if you have the option to.
Okay.
And so this Animal Crossing from Japan had a file. What I can tell, the last time they signed in was, I think, 2013. So it's a bit of an older file, but it was nice because like everything was kind of done, so I could run around and catch bugs and stuff. But for this video yesterday morning, I was like, okay, I'm gonna play a little bit of the original Animal Forest and just kind of get a feel for it. The time was, like June 2013 or something, because there's no internal clock, so you have to set the clock every time.
Okay.
And when I went to go set the time, because it's all in Japanese, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I deleted the city.
Oh no!
The whole file.
If that happened.
I'm kind of choked up about it.
Oh no. Yeah, it's like it plays to that part of you want to like appreciate the file that was there. And it's like when you used to rent it from like a game store or like a corner store that rented games out, you're like, oh, I shouldn't delete this file. It means something. It's almost complete.
Yeah. So I'm honestly a little bit choked up about it, but I did look up like briefly online because it has an interesting history where it was much more stripped down. Like there's no museum, there's no Able Sisters, like a piece of furniture. Like if you get like the pair cupboards or whatever, it only stores one item.
Oh
so,
no.
Like, it's definitely like the bones are there, but it's simpler. There's fewer characters, there's less text, that sort of thing. And then they re-released it on Gamecube as, I think it was called like Animal Forest Plus, and then they translated that, released it here as Animal Crossing, and added like more content and more text. And then in Japan they really liked that version, so they translated it back to Japanese, and then re-released it again on Gamecube, and called it, I think, Animal Forest E Plus.
I feel like if you end up translating something back and forth like that, there's definitely got to be some translation errors.
Oh, definitely. But it's not uncommon for them to do that in Japan, to re-release games. Like, I know they did that with like Mario 64, where they released it in Japan, and then when they released it in North America, they fixed a bunch of bugs and stuff, and then they re-released that version back in Japanese as like a better version. And they did that with was it Mario 2 in North America was a Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic, and then they re-released that version back in Japan and called it, I think, Super Mario Brothers USA, which is such a weird title, but their titles are always weird.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're already off on a huge tangent. So what I was saying was that the original Animal Crossing is still like, it's very fun to play on the 64, but obviously without having a good understanding of Japanese, you are losing a lot.
Yeah.
But it is still nice to kind of like run around and catch bugs and that sort of thing. But what about the Animal Crossing on GameCube? Like, do you remember the first time like you saw it or heard about it, or what was your first experience with that one?
My first experience was definitely that one, like the one on the GameCube. I don't remember how it showed up, but like other games, they just kind of show up in your house and you're like, okay, I'll play this. It looks fun. And I remember back then you could have multiple houses on the same island. You could have 4 of them. And I think I don't know why this memory resonates so much with me, but we would always paint the roofs of our houses. And I remember one day my brother was so upset because he just saved up money to paint the roof of his house. And the next day his villager came up to him and said, "Hey buddy, I painted the roof for you." And he was so upset. And just like the little things like that, when the game was very bare bones and was very simple, things like that were just like a goal that you were going towards, was painting your roof. And for me...
Yeah, because you could only buy like one type of paint like at the store every day. So like if you wanted to paint your roof purple and they didn't have purple that day, well, you had to wait, and it could take like weeks for purple to come back.
Yeah, and you always wanted like your favorite color as a kid, and if it wasn't available, you were like, oh, come on, man. I think that game, though, for me was the starting of me doing games that were daily, to say. Like, I would pick up Animal Crossing almost every day, do a little bit of gameplay, catch the bugs, catch some fish, and then turn it off. So it was a first for me to pick up a game for 20 minutes and drop it. And it's just very user friendly. And you don't need to read the rules. You're not fighting monsters. You're not, checking your health bar to see if you're still alive. It's very stress free.
Yeah.
Except for Rossetti.
Except for Mr. Rossetti, who honestly I think they ended up removing him in later versions because kids were afraid of him.
He does seem very aggressive.
Yeah, so last night, after I messed up my Animal Forest file, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll play my original Animal Crossing file from 2002, which, so my town is my town is more than 18 years old, which is ridiculous. My town can drink in Quebec. That's how old it is.
Good Canada joke.
And that's for you Canadians out there. Yeah, so I started up that file, I booted it up, and I guess last time, many, many years ago, I didn't reset properly. And Mr. Rossetti came up, and he called me, what did he say to me? He said that I was a punk, and he said that I had an ugly pig nose, and he made me type out, using the keyboard, to type out that I was bad. And then it was context sensitive, so I didn't capitalize the I, and then he got more mad, and he's like, no, do it right! And the big, scary text on the screen, and I was like, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry, it was bad, Mr. Rossetti.
That is very aggressive for a video game to yell at children like that. Like, you're bad.
Yeah, and the thing is I think that the first time it happens, he's like, okay, it's fine, whatever. But then, the more you do it over the years, the longer his rants get, and the angrier he gets. Mm-hmm. And he started blaming me for, I think his blood pressure problems and stuff. It was intense. Because It's been, like I said, it's been 18 years of me often accidentally resetting, but sometimes on purpose. You accidentally sell, a fish that you wanted to put in the museum or something. And you're like, oh, well, it was really hard to catch that fish, so I guess I'm just going to have to reset and put up with being called a punk and being ugly.
Yeah, they really want you to feel the consequences of your actions in that game.
But just for that, because, that is the thing. I was trying to think about what makes Animal Crossing so different. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to think, okay, well, what is it like other games? And I was thinking about, it's kind of like The Sims, I guess. If you can just enter the mode where, you just have all the money you want and just build, a nice house, and then... But even in The Sims, you can't, just leave your sim, because he's going to end up, burning down the house and peeing his pants and stuff. That's...
Yeah.
He will literally starve to death. He won't eat. Whereas Animal Crossing, you could turn on your file in the morning, leave it unpaused for, a week. Nothing bad's going to happen, except you're going to grow some weeds.
And
that's basically it.
I think in the earlier games, you also got a tan. I think your character could get a tan if it stayed out in the sun too long.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true. I totally forgot about that.
Me too. When you said that, I was like, wait a second, memory unlocked.
Yeah. So I guess there is a consequence if you want to not be tanned.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. It's pretty rough. Mm-hmm. But also, there are goals in the sense that, okay, you can catch all the fish if you want and get the golden fishing rod or whatever it gives you. Mm-hmm. And, okay, you can fill the museum up. And there's even that goal, which I've never done in any Animal Crossing game, where you try to make the town happy. There's the tree that you talk to.
My goodness.
The wishing well. And it's in patch B4, there's not a lot of green and it's depressing or whatever.
I completely forgot about that, actually. Yeah.
I never do that in any game because I don't know what the reward is, but I feel like it's not worth making my whole town pretty.
Yeah.
But I think that's also the that and Mr. Rossetti, I feel like those are kind of Japanese things, where your town has a spirit and you're trying to keep the spirits happy and that sort of thing. I think that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, because they follow the rules there, right? So it's if you go against the rules, Mr. Rossetti is your consequence.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, they're really big on being polite and following the rules and doing what you're told. So it's probably that. And actually, there was a thing that I wanted to try out, which that makes me think of where apparently you can, once the game is loaded on your GameCube, you can take the disc out. Mm-hmm. Because the game is so small, it just loads all into the RAM of the GameCube. But I don't have my GameCube here, so I couldn't try that. But I thought that was interesting, and probably could have saved money, because you just pass it off to your siblings or whatever. Just load it up and then pass it off, rather than having more than one copy. So
yeah, speaking of that...
That's a hot tip from 2002 for you, you gamers out there.
You can go back in time. Speaking of that, though, it reminds me of New Horizons, where I'm seriously considering getting like a used Switch Lite just so I can have another island, because I really don't want to destroy it. I have a problem with destroying an island that I worked multiple hours on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that like near the end, but it came up now, where I was just going to ask you if you actually destroyed or restarted any of your villages or towns or islands or anything. Because I mean, like I said, I have my town of Butters from 2002.
Love that.
Named after the character from South Park.
Yeah.
Just to really date my town. Like I still have that town. And I was happy, when I booted it up, I was like, yeah, okay, so I got bridges here and rivers here and, some town people I like.
Some you don't.
I was happy with it. Some I don't. Yes. So I booted up the file, and I think it's been 18 years. I think it's been like how many years since I've booted it up? I think it's probably been at least 5 or 6 years. And yeah, there's this one cat. I think her name's Tabby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a tabby cat, and she's kind of ugly and annoying.
Yeah, and I think I know.
And I think she moved to my town from one of my friends, because for those that don't remember, you could take your town in your memory card and bring it to like a friend's Gamecube or something, and then they could like visit your town. I think that's how it worked, with the 2 different memory cards.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did that, sometimes a villager would like go from your save file to somebody else's or vice versa. And Tabby came over from a friend's village in like 2003 or something, and just has not left. And I like dig pitfalls around her house. I hit her with a net in the face. I never do any tasks for her, and just everyone else moves in, moves out, moves in, moves out, and she just won't go.
She just won't leave.
I don't want. She won't leave. She's still there every time I turn on the game. She was actually the person who greeted me. You turn on the game, and like when your villager's like, "Oh, hey, it's been a long time. You want to change the time, or are you on the right date?" And it was Tabby, and I was like, "Ugh, you're still here."
You're like, the only thing I want is for you to move out.
Yep. She likes my town, so.
Oh gosh, have you ever considered resetting your town just to get rid of her?
No, I couldn't, because I'm, like I said, I'm so attached.
Yeah.
To that specific like layout of the town, and also I've paid off my debt, and I've caught all the fish. I haven't caught all the bugs, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could do that, because like when I booted it up yesterday, I was like, I don't want to say I was gonna cry, but I was pretty emotional about it. I was like, oh, it's my town. There's lots of little people. Oh, there's that duck. I remember that duck. And
mm-hmm.
I have the city dump, right beside Mr. Tom Nook's place.
Mm-hmm.
So I can just go to the dump, grab stuff from there, and then sell it to him right away. It's a good layout.
I kind of wish that there was still a dump in the newer games. I find that, there's still like a recycling bin, or there's like a lost and found kind of thing, but you don't really find that many cool things. And the dump was just nice to throw all your stuff in and move on.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying to get rid of stuff otherwise. You have to like go to the special bin, or you have to, I think you can throw stuff out if you own a garbage can, like in your house.
Yes.
I think you can throw stuff out, which is a neat, it's a neat little feature. But I totally got ahead of myself, and I didn't talk about my original Animal Crossing experience.
Oh yeah.
Which I did mention in the GameCube episode, for all of you who, remember and listen to that episode from 8 years ago. So sorry to repeat myself.
Oh no.
But I had a friend whose parents owned like a plot of land by a lake somewhere. And so it had like lots of trees and, a little beach and stuff. And they had a trailer set up. And under the trailer, there's the like the awning that goes out to protect you from rain and stuff. So under there, my friend had, like, I was visiting him at this lot, and he had like a card table, a little plaid, I think it was like light green and white card table with a tiny TV set up on top, and then a GameCube with a Spice controller, the orange controller. I remember this so well.
Yeah, this is a very vivid memory.
He showed me this game, and he's like, yeah, this is Animal Crossing, which, by the way, means nothing. It doesn't describe the game at all. Because it doesn't matter that they're animals. They could be any sorts of characters.
And aren't they ever crossing?
No, not really. I mean, there is the train, so there's that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he showed me the game, and I was like, I don't understand. He's like, yeah, so you get fruit, and you fish. And I'm like, okay, but what's the point? And he's like, look, you could take an apple and eat it. And I'm like, okay, but you don't have any health, so why are you eating the apple?
Yeah.
And I was confused, but I was also very, like, enamored by it. Because it seemed so unique and so fresh. And also there was all like these little, like kind of, I don't want to say secrets, but like little things that you learn as you play. Like, oh, if you hit the rock with the shovel, then you can get money. And then you learn tricks about like, okay, you dig holes around you so you don't move. And there's like that trick where in your inventory, there's like a background, right? Mm-hmm. That moves. And if you take like a shirt or a pattern, you can move it into the background, and then the shirt pattern will become your background.
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not. They don't tell you anything when you open that game. It's just like, oh, so what's your name? What's your town? By the way, you owe this Tanuki some money, and that's like basically it, right? And then you're just kind of left to your own devices. And I thought that was really unique. So when I went home after that, I immediately went to Radio Shack. Because Radio Shack had video games.
Oh, jeez.
And bought Animal Crossing on the GameCube, which was actually pretty expensive. I think it was like $70 or something, which was a lot for a game at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that was because it came with the memory card. Because the memory of Animal Crossing is like 50-some files, and most memory cards, I think, were like 100? Or maybe 250 or something. Like, it wasn't a lot. Like, Animal Crossing took up the majority of your save file of your memory card. So they gave you a memory card which was smaller that could fit basically just Animal Crossing on it. And I think it's got a little character on it and stuff, and you can write your name. So yeah, so I bought that, and then I brought it home, and then I just kind of got into it. And I did the same thing where I would play most days, even if it was just for a few minutes. And that was, it was nice to have a thing that was regular to do. And I think at that point in my life too, this was like when I was a teenager, and I was not a happy teenager. I mean, I wasn't emo or anything, but we're gonna get real here.
No, My Chemical Romance or anything.
No. It's all about Yellow Card, man.
Oh yes.
But I was not a happy teenager. I was like suicidally depressed, and I didn't really want to do anything. I just felt like numb all the time. And I actually didn't realize that I was really depressed in high school until a couple of years ago. Somebody came out with a video that was called, I think it was called Animal Crossing and My Depression.
Oh, I watched that one too.
Or, no, Animal Crossing and My Mental Health. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, and the comments were actually like really, like so many people were chiming in on the same thing, being like, wow, I never realized that the task-oriented objective of Animal Crossing gave me something to do every day and something to look forward to.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. Yeah, no, I felt the same way. But the thing was funny was that like it kind of, a light bulb just kind of went off, and I was like, oh my god, I was so depressed in high school.
What a revelation.
And I didn't realize it because the first time that you're depressed, it's a new feeling, right? And you're just like, oh, I'm just sad, whatever. And then when you're in the feeling, it's hard to look at yourself outwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to be reflective. I mean, most teenagers aren't reflective anyways. You don't like, why am I feeling this way? Like, what does this mean? Like, when you're a teenager, you just feel things and you expect everybody around you to understand why. And so, like, when I saw that video, I was like, oh my god, yeah. That, I didn't realize it until now, but yeah, I was super depressed as a teenager.
Hey, that's me.
And Animal Crossing was really good for that because, yeah, the characters can be kind of harsh at times, some of them, but they're funny and they're charming, and there's no real goals other than the ones you set for yourself. So yeah, I wanted to catch all the fish. So, I looked up how to catch the fish, and I wanted my town to be bigger to get more villagers, and it was nice to have a thing to do. I remember even a couple times I got up at 6 a.m. in real life to do the aerobics in the game,
Oh.
which I think is only in the first one, where you like use the C stick and then they like wiggle their arms and stuff. I think it's just radio Taiso, which funnily enough I actually do in real life now. But at the time I think they just called it morning radio exercises or something. And the funny thing is I could have totally done that at like 8 p.m. if I wanted to. I just had to set the GameCube time to 8 p.m. But for some reason I was like, no, I want to do it at 6 a.m. to get the full experience of tapping the C stick lightly to the left and right and sometimes up. Just so it was really weird that like Animal Crossing, it filled this need to have a task, especially during the summer, because I think I bought it during summer vacation where, you're not seeing your friends every day. You don't have specific things to do every day. Even if you have a job, it's probably not full time, so you still have lots of free time. And it was nice to wake up and collect my fruit and make a little bit more money and maybe get that cabinet I really wanted. and it was nice to also just kind of appreciate the little touches in the game. Like I mentioned earlier, like you can eat a fruit. You can eat an orange or an apple. It doesn't do anything in the game except sound really cute when the character's like...
It's a great sound effect. You nailed it.
It was, yeah, they nailed the munching, or like when it's raining, you can like twirl your umbrella and make the water like splash everywhere. I remember really enjoying the sound of walking in the snow. Yeah, it sounds really like you're actually walking in the snow, or it sounds like nice and squishy and like almost styrofoamy, and just like enjoying those little things that don't matter. But yeah, I don't know. It was. I always do this when I'm doing this series where I just start like rambling and then just go, yeah, I don't know, and I just hope that the guest will like jump in and say something.
I don't want to cut you off. You're having like such a moment going back in time, right? Like I don't want to cut you off whenever you're having this nostalgic moment. But I did actually want to ask you something that you brought up. You said that you didn't want to go forward in time or backwards in time. Do you ever do that in the Animal Crossing games?
I certainly did. And that's actually probably where the Mr. Rossetti kept coming in, because, I guess if it was, July in real life, and I was like, well, I really want to see what it's like during Halloween or something, I might jump ahead, and then, like, jump back, but then just, like, not save, and that's probably where Mr. Rossetti gets mad. So I did do that from time to time, but I didn't really want to do that too much because I think that also increases the chances of like people moving out, because to the villagers it's been like 10 years. You just like jump ahead and then jump back and stuff.
You've been ignoring me this whole time.
When I went into the game, I think the character was like, what did he say when I was in the game? He was like, I haven't seen you in this many months, and I did the math, and it was what was it? He said, where have you been for the last 152 months?
Oh gosh. You're like, I don't know, man.
Back up. So it is, and also increases the weeds when you time travel and stuff. So I didn't really do it too much. Mm-hmm. I think I did sometimes like by an hour or two, because in the first game, I feel like the store wasn't open as much.
Yeah, it was a very short period of time.
Yeah, so if you had, you're completely full of fish, and you're like, well, I need to get rid of these fish because I want to keep playing, but the store, was going to close in 5 minutes or something, then I might, push the time back by an hour or two. But I didn't really time travel too much, no. It was a cool feature. It was another one of those things where you're just like, you can trick the game and do what you want. But I didn't really time travel too much.
I think the nice thing about that, though, was in the beginning, you had no pocket space. Like, you had maybe 5 spaces, and you couldn't stack fruit back then. So you were really just going back to Tom Nook and his shop every, 10 minutes just to go sell your fish. So it really mattered for those couple of hours that Tom Nook was open. And nowadays, you can stack everything and you have, ample pocket room. But before, you were like, open the doors, I need to sell you my fish.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, well, it wasn't 5. It was probably more like 12 or 15 or something. But it definitely wasn't a lot.
With the amount of I was going to say weapons. That's not right. The amount of tools you had. Like, if you had your shovel and your net and your fishing rod on you, and you had, like, one piece of fruit, you were almost halfway through, like, your availability.
Yeah, and you're, like, holding letters so you can mail them off to be looked at in the museum, and you're holding, fossils that you just dug up, and maybe you're holding an extra shirt or your umbrella. And it's just like, yeah, it takes up a lot of space. And like I mentioned earlier, each cabinet, which I think in the newer games, like you buy a cabinet and it could fit like 100 items or something. Maybe not that much, but it's a lot. And in the Animal Crossing, you can only hold 3. So like my basement is just full of cabinets just to store shirts and stuff. and the upstairs is all Mario stuff. It's like you could get the flagpole and get the mushroom, and you click on it, it makes the noises, bullet bills and stuff. And that was also kind of neat too, because I know nowadays it's really common with the rise of indie games to like buy an indie game, and it's like, oh, this cat looks like this cat from this other movie, or this hat is clearly this hat from Zelda or whatever. Games are really full of references nowadays, but I think back in 2002, having Mario items in your non-Mario game was like really neat.
Yeah.
You had to like put the codes in from like Nintendo Power or like just getting them online. You'd have to put in those like super long codes with all the different letters and numbers just to get one item.
Yeah. It was a fun little Easter egg.
Yeah, it was kind of like an Easter egg, yeah. And also, I don't know if you remember this from the original one, because it doesn't sound like you played it too much, but they also had like a bunch of NES games.
Yes.
So you could play like...
I do remember that, actually.
You can play like Clue Land and like Ice Climbers and tennis and baseball and stuff. Like whole NES games just sit there. So I would sometimes do that too, as I'd go into the game, play a little bit NES, collect some fruit, and then go back out. And there was a few of them too that you could download on your Game Boy Advance. Like download it onto the RAM of the Game Boy Advance. So like if I wanted to play tennis on my Game Boy, I just hook it up to my Animal Crossing on the GameCube using the connector cable, and then you can take it, and as long as your Game Boy Advance stays on, it'll have that game in the memory, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
it's honestly like super, I don't know, thinking back at it, it's just so cool that they added all these little tiny features that to some people, they would just brush over it, but other people, they were like, okay, I'm actually going to open up my game just to play the NES game on Animal Crossing.
Yeah, and like you'd be perfectly fine not doing that or never even getting an NES game. I think honestly, if you bought the Animal Crossing that had the Animal Crossing memory card, I think a couple NES games came on that. Like that was kind of like a little bonus. It's like, hey, look, you have 2 NES games.
Oh, nice.
You just had to pay $70 for it for these great games from 20 years ago.
Nice.
I think also what was really cool about it was that it felt very like personal, because when you start your game, your villages are randomized, your town is randomized, the pattern of grass is randomized, the fruit that you have is randomized. So it felt like, okay, well, like my town of Butters is my town of Butters, right? I could start the game 100 times and not have the same layout and have the same people, the same fruit and that kind of stuff. So like that made it feel like unique and personal. And I think also at the time, like I said, I was a teenager, the idea of moving out, because you start the game like in the train with Rover the cat, and he's like, oh, so you're moving out, eh? And striking out for the first time and getting your own home, and like that kind of was like in the distance for me a little bit being in high school, but I was looking forward to it, not being at home. Most teenagers are looking forward to moving out. Don't necessarily have the best relationship with their parents, but you have this game where it's just like, yeah, you can kind of strike out on your own, and you'll start in this little shack, but eventually you'll get the furniture you want and the layout you want, and you're gonna work and make life your own.
It's very adult. I find the whole game, like the concept, the main goal is pay your mortgage. And it's very like, why are we so excited, and why do we love a game that's all about paying a mortgage? When most adults...
Kids love capitalism. They're all about it.
They do. Most adults are just like, great, another mortgage payment. And us as kids playing Animal Crossing, we're like, I have enough to pay my mortgage. I'm going to get a bigger house.
That's part of it, is that your house gets bigger, and so you can fit more stuff in it. and then eventually you get a gold statue of yourself. So
Actually, I never got a gold statue of myself, did I? I don't remember that.
I think I looked at the amount of bells I have. I think I have like 1 million bells, close to 1 million bells, in my bank right now, because there's nothing to do with it, because I can't expand my house anymore.
Yeah.
I have all the furniture I want, so there's no real point in making money in that game anymore for me.
Mm-hmm.
Other than just like enjoying the game, there's no real reason for me to play it anymore, because all those tasks that I could have made are fulfilled. Other than catching all the bugs, but I'm just like, what do you get? Probably something I don't care about.
Yeah, in the newer games, you don't get many rewards for your tasks, and one of the big things I do like about the newer one, New Horizons, is that it is so task-oriented, and you have so many different rewards and like different tasks to do, whether it's daily or it's like a long-term goal, which is really great. And I think that was a good improvement that they did. Before we get into the newer games, though, I did have one more thing to say about the GameCube game. Is one thing that just like frustrated me to no end was when you just made a spot of your town look good, or you just put something like a tree or flowers that you like, and a villager moves in right exactly where you put that, or they move in right in front of your house. And I remember I opened up my file in, I think it was City Folk, and somebody put their house right in front of my bridge, so I couldn't like run easily anymore, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make you move out.
I have that problem with New Leaf, where I think I have like maybe 7 villagers in New Leaf, and I built my house like on this kind of like cliff edge, which I thought was really neat, like near, it overlooks the ocean and stuff. And 4 of the 7 houses are directly above my house.
Oh.
Like my village, my whole town feels so empty because they're all smushed into one location.
Yeah.
And that is a bit frustrating, that you can't really control that. Or maybe you can. Can you do that in later games? I don't know.
Yeah, you can actually. In New Horizons, it's when they first introduced that you can choose exactly where everyone goes. You can choose where they first get there, because you put down the plot where they eventually put their tent or their house up. And then afterwards, if you change your mind or you change your island, you can move them. You just can only move one person a day, and it costs something like 50,000 bells or something. But in the earlier games, when you think back to it, you're like, wow, you couldn't move anything. You couldn't put any furniture outside. Your town was pretty bare, and you couldn't put anything like personalized out there. I know in New Leaf, you had the city projects, and you could do a public works project and get like a fountain or something. Everything on the public works list was very expensive, and it was also something that was pretty boring, like a park bench or something. But at least you could start in that game decorating the outside of your island, and that was a really nice feature that they added to that game.
Yeah. So I think, I think we're kind of wrapping up with the original game, right? Like, you don't have too much else to say about that one.
No, I think that the original games, they were nice and simple, and there isn't much to do in them, so there wasn't much to really go over, but it was, it laid the groundwork for games that you would pick up every day, and games that you would do little tasks in, and I thought that was just such a different game at the time, because everything was, like Zelda, like there was a purpose. You have to kill people, you have to get to the end, you have to, there was a goal, but this is very much like a different game at the time.
Yeah, and I'm actually really surprised that there weren't too many clones or people who are trying to repeat it, but I will discuss that when we get to the next game, which maybe we will do after we take a little bit of a break.